welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
I'm over here now. I'm Ari.
Hi, I'm Jesi.
I'm Tori.
And I'm Josh, and I hope you stay in shot. But,
Not Larry.
Tori, I want to welcome you back to this season and this panel, and I want to thank everybody else that's an essential worker from the Literary Gladiator family. You have Trevor, who
He works at Bright Lights.
There's Dan, who works at a gas station. Kim works in the supermarket. Carl works at the supermarket.
You work at the supermarket.
Yeah.
I do.
It's essential individuals.
No buts.
Well, Kayla works at a veterinary.
Do you
Hospital.
still work at the dentist?
I
office?
do, however, we were not considered essential, so I had a little bit of time.
Okay.
But you're
Somebody got some tips.
I mean, I
doing
helped
it.
out with some emergencies here and there, but I was not considered
what
quite
you're doing,
essential.
and Dominica behind the camera is also essential.
I say round of applause for all of our LG
Yeah.
members. So,
All of our
essential LG members.
teachers and people that work in the school fields, even if they
That's
are
me.
from home, even if they're working from home, they are still being able to continue doing what they do
Absolutely, yeah.
in such an inconvenient
Way
way.
of doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
my-
not used
my-
to doing everything online.
My
and
sister,
then,
who is an
It is a
educator
little
as well,
tricky.
has been
Mhm.
fun to watch that. And by fun, I mean I feel so bad.
we've got Charlie, who he works for the library. He may not be
Charlie, yeah.
he may not be doing anything there, but he's done a lot to enhance their digital experience. Him and Kelsey, who is the assistant producer for seasons 3, 4, and 5.
And what's one of the best things that you can do when you're staying at home? Keeping and reading.
Yes.
Reading a book, and the one that we're going to be discussing today is an excellent read. This is a nice little one-day reader, so.
Yep. We're going over Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman.
I love Neil
Tori
Gaiman.
picked this one because of the Tori Reynolds mansplaining law for discussion starters. Tori will be the discussion starter for this.
So the question that I want to start everybody off with today, I had two that I was kind of going back and forth with, but I think I'm going to stick with this one because I read an article about the power of words before coming here, off topic, Seder squares or whatever, so if that's something interesting, words, look it up. But, so the power of word is so magical. And in this book, we kind of go from the mundane literally into a magical world where everything is taken at face value. There's, Knight's Court and all these different things. Islington is an angel. And the things that are the names of all the different underground stops are exactly what they are. So words have power. Door is somebody who can open doors. I was going to say, because it's set in an urban fantasy setting, instead of a high fantasy setting where he's not, thrown through a magical portal into an alternate reality, it's very much so the same reality that he's part of. Do you think that lent itself or diminished to the magical transportation of his, magical journey?
So I'm going to say, I know I've read, what was that other one, The Ocean at the End of the Lane.
Mm-hmm.
I am a big fan of Neil Gaiman now, and the way he kind of takes ordinary and turns it magical
Ordinary to
is
extraordinary.
Yes, ordinary to extraordinary. That's a perfect way of saying it. It's almost like the stamp of Neil Gaiman. And I think that kind of adds to it that you have, magic can be found in the most unlikely places. I mean, I thought, what were those called? The rat talkers?
The rat speakers.
Rat speakers.
Yeah,
I
rat
was like,
speakers.
what? And they're like, no, we speak to rats. I was like,
Excuse me?
okay. I didn't know that was something that, needed to be done. But, I mean, it's so simple how he slowly brings you into it. And then all of a sudden, it's just this whole new world right under the nose of every ordinary person. So,
And that's, yes, literally.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic point of view, so
great.
a very good.
I think a lot of Neil Gaiman stories have this thing where, you're transported, but you're not. You don't feel like you've been transported. It's just like you're in the
That's
same
exactly
place,
it, yes.
but it's like the magic is still there.
And
I'll
that's
give you an
absolutely why I love that,
example, just to give you an idea of how it repeats itself. If you think about it in Coraline, when you are put into the other mother's side,
the
it
other
still
apartment.
looks the same, except there's those minute differences in the magical interior and keeping of what the world looks like.
Absolutely.
In a way, Neverwhere is very similar to that. From what I remember when I read it.
Yeah, that's it, like you said. It's his stamp. It's his like signature move is being able to take stuff, and I think this is why I love urban fantasy as much as I do. Is because he's able to take these fantastical things and superimpose it onto an everyday humdrum location that like you could walk by.
And even the names of the places I remember it was a very simple change. It was above
London below.
Yeah, London above and London below.
Yeah. And I just think that just something simple like that could have such a
while we're on the
amazing
topic,
change.
so this was the other question that I was going to talk about is he was asked, is this book a satire on how modern society views the homeless? Because if you look at it, a lot of the narrative is about how these people, and he literally says that, all of these things, places, things, people who are fallen through the cracks and forgotten and left behind. And there are some places throughout London
you
below.
get that in the beginning too, where
Exactly.
like where the rat speakers are like.
Oh yeah, I just
they
remembered
just-
something.
Because they're all homeless people. Do you agree with that stance? That was the other question, and I didn't want to go as serious or like I didn't know where to go with that. But that is a large portion of the book is the narrative also is hinged on, yes, these places are the day-to-day, but you also have these people that are ignored. You literally turn invisible if you're somebody who has fallen on hard times.
You know, if I remember correctly, I haven't read this in a very long time,
Not booking.
but I have.
That's not the first time you chucked the Neil Gaiman book
with
out.
what I'm about to say, I think you're going to take that back. I remember when I read it, I was still in high school. I think this was the book, if I can remember correctly, where somebody disappeared permanently, like got
No.
lost. Okay, maybe it wasn't this
No,
book.
he when he
But, like, they
helps
were all-
Dor,
Yeah,
He
he starts to become invisible because she tries to say like, don't do too much, I don't want you getting too involved. And then the very next day, his apartment is literally sold out from underneath him. He's like in
like,
the
I'm
shower.
standing here.
He's like standing there like, hello, I'm in a towel. And
Yeah,
there's people, like,
I
walking around
think
his
there
apartment.
it was this book because that sounds very familiar. I think I actually cried because I remembered that like
That's such a profound
I have a
sensation.
fear. I have
there
a
were
fear of
moments that you
abandonment.
tried to-
So like when
Yeah, and this
things
is-
disappear,
Yes.
when people disappear, it's like it's
Exactly.
one of those biggest fears. I
So-
think like
so this-
I watered
that
up a
is a
little bit.
question
I'm
that-
pretty sure it was this book.
That is a question that was asked of this was this book supposed to be commentary on the fact that that happens? These people lose their job, lose their home, lose their sense of structure that is socially acceptable, and we ignore them. And then at one point in time, he goes to give change out of his pocket to somebody when he's walking to the fancy, big, important dinner
And
with
then
Jessica,
you see him,
and Jessica says, no, don't bother.
Yeah.
So like the people who are well-to-do kind of look down on that kind of stuff, and it's that
I'm gonna make
Jessica
sure.
was
I'm
a
gonna make
bitch.
sure I read this.
read it again.
Yeah.
Jessica's like the
I was put
Jessica's like the Rachel McAdams.
Yeah, she was-
I
Yes.
think Rachel
Yeah.
McAdams would play her in a
Yeah.
movie.
yeah,
I didn't
that's,
like her.
you're not.
I know you're not supposed to,
Yeah.
but I
You're
really
not
didn't like
supposed to.
her.
But
and
I was like, she gives Jessica's a bad name.
And drop the book.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah,
Right.
I'm throwing my book at you now.
I wanted to answer the first question.
Okay, yeah,
about the
yeah, sorry.
I think it's very difficult to dissect the fantastical because I think that it's meant to entertain. I think that the social commentary is a prevalent thing to keep in mind, and class structure, but I think if there's anything that's there for thinking purposes aside from class structure, it's that whole idea that in Richard's case, he is forced into embracing a particular situation.
Richard Mayhew.
That-
Right.
Richard Mayhew. Yes,
That
that's
he
his actual
granted-
name. He goes through many names.
It wasn't like he did anything wrong to get himself into the
No,
situation.
he actually did something right.
Yes.
He did the nice moral thing, and because society says like, no, don't do that, go with the flow, ignore all those kinds of things, he gets pulled into this fantastical situation.
If I
just love how-
if I remember correctly, it was that he was walking by and the door was on the
Yeah,
ground.
literally,
and,
door comes falling out. It's
him
like,
and Jessica
help
needed
me.
to. Yeah. Okay.
Because she tried to open a door to something that would help her,
Right,
anyone,
yes.
and then whoop,
I just like how he goes against the tropes as far as what is generally the structure is concerned, where, for instance, with Richard, when he comes back,
that was going to
That's
be another
just-
question. Do you think this book would have had as impactful an ending
if he didn't go back.
He decided to stay with Dora
I know
and
he
didn't
did.
go back to see what his life would be. Do you remember any of that?
Yeah, I do remember. I
just love
do
how-
remember
I
the
mean-
ending because I do remember that he went back to the world above, decided, oh, okay, this isn't quite. I like whatever reason he wanted to stay below, and he actually decided to stay.
More specific, I mean, things,
I don't exactly remember
things
specifically.
were
Yeah.
technically better, where he got a promotion in his job. He's living in a penthouse now.
Yeah, it leads to the question
But
of what is better? What defines better?
But I think it depends on what you think is better.
Do you think a life that is comfortable and certain to have all of the essentials of amenities of having an income, having a roof over your head, having a very predictable life versus knowing that you have a purpose and a meaning even in uncertain times? So that's kind of like how I was looking at it.
Yeah, I'm thinking that it's kind of like you go on a huge adventure with maybe 2 or 3 people, and then when it's all finished, you wanna decide am I able to go back to my regular life? Is it actually something that's possible psychologically?
He even says at one point, and suddenly he was sitting next to the girl from IT, and he literally, like a movie, saw his life spill out in front of him. He'll go home, the two of them will, lay down in bed, and the next morning they'll wake up. She'll help him unpack the rest of his stuff. They'll have a boy and a girl, and yada yada yada.
I thought that was brilliantly done, because that in a box office film, that's what would have happened.
Literally,
And especially because it goes to show you that you don't have to have those things in order to be happy.
I mean, he doesn't have a good time down in London Below. He
No.
is beaten up and battered, and he's kind of made to feel like he's this useless add-on, fifth wheel.
But
and
perhaps
yet-
because he feels he's helping people like Dora and stuff.
Precisely. He was
thought-
given a purpose at the end of it. He, the trial for the key, he fought for his place there, and he proved to himself, I can go through so much.
Right, because he was.
But that's
if I remember correctly, there were 2 assassins that were going after Dora.
Yeah, Kraup and Vandermeer.
Yeah, I was gonna say I could not
To
remember
me,
the other
they
guy.
reminded me
I know
of
it's like
the.
Cooper,
They
Crop, or
reminded me of
whatever.
the 2 guys, the robbers from Home Alone.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
exactly what they were supposed to be
Joe
like,
Pesci
actually.
and whoever played.
I
should know
imagine
who played
David
it.
Tennant and Dave Bautista as the 2 of them. That's how I can, because the ones explain the greasy orange hair.
Is there an actual show for Neverwhere with David Tennant and David
So
Bautista?
here's a fun fact. This was actually written. This started out as a pitch
Yeah, I
for a
did hear about
show.
that, yeah.
It never became a show. I think maybe later on in the 90s, maybe. I don't know. I can't remember.
I
but
remember that this was a rare example where I forget if it was a show or a movie, but
It might
whichever
have been
the TV.
Discworld. Discworld, I think, might have had some sort of.
Right, because I looked this up on Wiki earlier, that the
but
book came second.
I don't know.
Whatever was first, the book
No,
came second.
he started writing this because he said it was like a 3-part, when he was 5 years ago from it being published, trying to pitch a show. 10 years ago from that, when he was trying to, think about the underground, and all the way back to when he was 7, when there was this game that he played when he was in class, and it was a board game that you had pieces that you had to move from station to station. So thinking about the very literal, fantastical places and people and things and events that could be taken from the names of these Knightsbridge and all of these different locations. Knightsbridge is probably one of my favorite parts in the book, by the way. That's just so creepy. There are various other parts, but that part I remember rereading it again, and the
That's one where
visceral.
Anastasia-
I think one of the most
Anastasia.
interesting science fiction / fantasy places that pop up in a lot of these things are the underground stations, the tubes.
And that's the other fun thing is there is so much lore and mythology that is so inbred into London. It's kind of hard not to be able to find all the labyrinth and the angels. And
One
all
of
that
the
kind of
scariest
madness.
Doctor Who stories from the 1960s took place all in the underground stations. And
There's
it was
a-
actually
there's
the
a-
real names of everything, like
Yeah.
Piccadilly and everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's a sense of claustrophobia.
Claustrophobia, yeah.
There are some people who do not like, subways and undergrounds.
I'll
because
admit
that's
it, I'm
insane.
claustrophobic.
So, but
I just think I think that Dora's character was just I really admired
Oh,
Dora.
she was
I love
fun.
It was
Dora.
just too much with just the way that she the way that she interacted with Richard. It was. I think the characters in general were. I think a lot of them serve to be plot devices.
Here's my here's a question. Thinking about how you were talking about how the two of them interacted. Do you think that they were love interests for one another? Because they don't end up together in the end.
I don't think so. No.
No, right?
No,
And I think that's
And I
one
like
of my
that.
favorite parts of the book is he doesn't end up with a love interest.
What I really admire.
You could probably ship them somehow, but not.
No. That's not. Yeah, you can. There's inference there, but
Yeah.
the fact that there is this book that was written, like you said, he loves to subvert tropes.
Yeah.
You look
It's a
at
breath
this
of
man
fresh air.
who went through, like Joseph Campbell's, the tale of the hero's cycle, where he becomes this. They even say, like, at one point in time when he walked out of the doors, I can't remember where specifically, he looked like a man who finally turned from a boy to a man. He matured. He bested a beast of the London Underground, and he went through the trial of the key, and he went through all these different things, found out who he was. And so, if this were a blockbuster movie, he would become the, like, very, dashing bravado,
That gets
macho,
the girl.
male lead who would get
Yeah.
the girl, and Dor would be the girl to get because she's the manic pixie dream girl.
And since that's usually
But
typical, you like it because it
it's
isn't
Neil Gaiman,
typical.
and I absolutely love it because he didn't follow that, and I'm not gonna lie, I hate it when the
So I have
guy and
to
the girl
say,
meet up and
One of my
anyway.
favorite Neil Gaiman stamps. That's what I'm gonna call them.
The Neil Gaiman stamps.
All right. I liked it with Ocean at the End of the Lane. I like it with this book too. He doesn't explain everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Anastasia goes missing, he doesn't explain why. Well, is she dead? Maybe.
And that's,
Like, that's
There was-
it.
there-
Like,
that's the scariest
and
part.
There were
is
things
you don't
about that.
know.
There are things
And I love
about that I wasn't. I'm not too fond of. I think, for instance, when somebody told Richard something, but he knew but we didn't. I don't like that. in a
See,
book.
mine wasn't even so much that. It's more or less when it comes to the magical part of his stories where he doesn't explain why that magic's there. Like, because I
as
feel like
mundane as anything.
yeah,
and
I
it's
feel like a
supposed to be
lot
oh,
of
okay.
fantasy books are like, oh yes, and this is the old magical tree, and it's magical because of this. And it's
Exposition.
like, no,
There-
I don't want that.
He does a lot of showing, and he doesn't do a lot of telling and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And it's through
I
bits
can
and
agree with
pieces
that.
of dialogue, how it's supposed to be, if you ask me. Like, if you were to do, he's a very cinematic writer.
Like again,
Yeah.
again with Coraline, he doesn't explain where the entire universe comes from.
He's
He
a very-
creates the world, but doesn't have to have all these reasons behind it. Because the thing he wants to do
gives
is he
you
wants
enough
to get to the
detail.
point.
Yeah, he gives you enough detail for you to be able to say, okay, I can run with that. And he wades you into this fantastic, ridiculous, scary, frightening, hysterical, loving, cruel
And actually,
world.
Tori, I just thought about something. Because a lot of his universes, they already look and feel similar to
He doesn't
a real
have
world.
to.
He doesn't
yes,
have
yes,
to.
yes, yes, yes. And that's another thing that I absolutely love is like, you already know the rules of this reality.
Yeah.
Now let me throw one or two more in here to sweeten the pot.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, one of my favorite things when I say urban fantasy. That's why I love him, because I'm a girl and one of my favorite tropes is random door to nowhere. I love magical doors. Magical doors to nowhere are one of my favorite tropes. I don't know why. But, like, give me a story where somebody just walks up and there's, like, suddenly a door where a door didn't belong there or wasn't there the day prior. Love it.
Yeah.
I will eat it up.
I
I'll
get
be
it.
like, yes, where are we going? Anyway, sorry, that's just me now.
We're going
No, I
to
get it.
the carnival. We're going to the carnival. We're going
So, anyway. He does that a lot, too. He likes doors to nowhere and...
I'm down with it. Those are the most fascinating things because it's like where
Those are his own contributions to, if you want to even call them tropes, because
Yeah.
if you could make something out of it that's different, then have at
I
it.
eat it up. I love the way, like you said, he builds his fantasy on top of the reality that we have, and you accept it part and parcel. There is no doubt that this world could exist, because there's so many different threads that he pulls on, both tragic and magnificent, that you can say, like, absolutely I can see this happening. Absolutely I can see a man who is sitting on the side of the road, covered in rags, talking to a rat because the rats own the underground.
Right, and yet it's just something
makes
super
sense.
magical.
Yeah, and it's magical because it's people talking. There's still talking animals, even though you don't understand them. There's Old Bailey on the rooftops talking.
I
to
actually
birds,
know
like,
of someone who called Neil Gaiman the fantasy puppeteer. That's what they called him.
That's an interesting title.
that?
I've heard
You don't know the person.
Creepy
I'm just saying, it's an old friend of
Scary
mine who
trousers
used to
or
go to
something
Rowan
like that?
with
I
me.
don't know that. I
He
just
used to
think
call
it's
Neil
great.
Gaiman
I
the
like
fan.
him a lot.
Because remember, I
that's
saw,
similar to what-
because I told you,
Yeah, I remember.
I went to I saw Neil Gaiman at a seminar at Rowan.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's similar to how I called
And
Rod
so
Serling
when
this
we-
Shakespeare of speculative fiction.
Right, so when we were going to that seminar, he kept saying that he called Neil Gaiman the fantasy puppeteer.
He's superb, and I think I'm biased towards him, but I have yet
And again,
to
I
read
should have bought my
anything.
ticket.
I've yet to read anything of his that I'm like, eh.
Did you read Good Omens?
Yes. Oh, I love Good Omens.
I just.
Oh, and Tori, I did finally read the Graveyard book.
Yeah. Uh huh.
Because I know that you like.
Maybe we should do that one next. Who knows?
Maybe we can do it
It's
for
a
the
good
draft.
There you go.
Alrighty. Do we have any final thoughts?
I think I've said everything.
I'm going to reread it at the next opportunity I have.
Mm-hmm.
Please do.
I don't think I have it in print, so I'll probably try and get it online.
I would say one of my final thoughts is the way. Actually, two things. One, I found Richard as being the kind of character that the reader, would be, as if you were.
He did the same thing with the ocean at
yeah.
the end of the lane, where it's like that
Yeah.
kid is an actual kid, and he's going to do what kids do.
Just even
Like,
it's the same
it's the
thing with
same
Tori.
thing with
It's
Richard.
every
I
it's
think
another one of
with
those
Richard, it
stamps.
seems like you are exactly in his shoes, and you are not just experiencing,
stamp
but also thinking the way that he is.
You know, going numb and just
Yeah.
going with things and asking
Which-
the questions that you'd be thinking of at that point in time.
Mhm.
He's an everyman. He
He-
does an excellent job
He
writing
even
an
did
everyman.
that in the book. It was, oh no, I wish I could remember. It was right at the beginning of the book, and I was like, I wonder why that's happening. And he goes, why is this? And I'm like, oh my god. He read my mind.
Excellent timing as well. His timing in here is like.
I like the pacing in all of his books, no matter what the length is.
Like I said, he writes cinematically. You can see this happening.
Which is also why, funnily enough, when I've seen his TV, like Doctor Who stuff, it's not quite as good. I mean, it still has the same stuff in it, but the pacing's a little off, and I think that's because he's
It's not
more...
just him. There's other people he's doing a treatment probably.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's more what it is.
So it's not just him. It's he's influencing things, but it's not primarily
It's not
him at
just
the
his
helm.
brain
Yeah.
working on that.
Yeah,
Actually,
precisely.
I have two more final thoughts. I said I only had two, but the second one was I like the way that he concluded things with certain characters when Richard was heading out on his way. I swore that I was going to see myself taking points off because his goodbye to Dora at first was when she gave him the slip. I thought that was going to be their last interaction. And
I have another question. The fact that the Marquis does not say goodbye to him, do you think it was because he knew he was coming back?
Yes.
I was going to get to that, but I thought it was very interesting that
We're
he was the
jumping
one
the
that
gun.
brings him back.
It wasn't Dora at the
No.
door. It was the Marquis.
Yeah.
And I love that fact. I'm reading the book
Because there
again.
had to have been a conclusion for him too, aside from just not being good with goodbyes. But
Yeah.
that was Gaiman did it with a wink and a nod.
Oh, and that's his. He does it, and it does it in the most sincere way, and it's like, oh, you like. There are some authors who do that, and it's the most like pretentious thing. Like, okay, I get it, but like Neil Gaiman has yet to find. Like, I read this book, and I read it again recently, and I knew what was going to happen, and still got
You missed those little details.
I hit the point where which part of the book where I was just like, what? And I totally forgot Hunter's betrayal. I totally forgot Hunter betrays them until she like does the roundhouse kick and kicks him in the chest. I was like, I forgot about this. I read this book and I forgot about it, and it was still just as like, oh no.
Neil Gaiman
he's
seems
just
to be
that
good
good.
at four things: writing, pacing, characterizations, and
Stamps.
his hairstyle.
Yeah, he's got some fun here.
And then the
Reminds me
third
of
one, I had Jesi in mind on page 188 when they're at the art shop or at the art museum. Would you think, Richard asked, that I was being picky if I pointed out that trying to find something with an angel on it in here is going to be like trying to find a needle in oh my god, it's Jessica.
Thanks.
That reminded me, do you remember the episode of Family Guy where Peter catches Lois in bed with Bill Clinton?
Yes.
That's
Yes, I
exactly what it reminded me of. Where Peter was going to see Bill
Like,
Clinton. but
oh my gosh, yes.
that's exactly what I thought when I saw that.
Oh my god!
I've
it's
seen
Bill
every
Clinton.
Family Guy episode there is, so I know exactly.
That's
what
one of
you're
my
talking
favorite
about.
ones,
it's
too.
so funny.
And then when Peter ends up in bed with Bill Clinton, it's
Yeah.
even funnier.
She's like, oh my god.
You are good. You are really, really good.
remember.
That's funny.
Poor Bill.
Picture of it, and of course my phone's over
Bill
there.
was the one that invited him in the bed.
Yes.
I don't feel sorry for him.
No, I'm saying that because of how it must have felt afterwards.
Here, this is the
I don't. Bill invited it onto himself,
No way.
and it's not the first time either.
It's literally just, hey, hey.
Sit down. So this is the quote
That'll
that
be
I
in the
just...
intro for season 12.
This was the quote that I wanted to end on that I think just kind of seals the deal here. Richard made another entry in his mental diary. Today, he thought, I've survived walking the plank, the kiss of death, and a lecture on inflicting pain. Right now, I'm on my way through a labyrinth with a mad bastard who came back from the dead and a bodyguard who turned out to be a... whatever the opposite of a bodyguard
Is this like a diary?
I am so far out of my depth that metaphors failed him then. He had gone beyond the world of metaphor and simile into place the things that are, and it was changing him. And I think that does, he's mentally going through all of the things that are going, and he doesn't have the time to write things in a diary, but like, I think that quote right there, if I were to make this into a movie, like a TV series or something like that, that would be the quote that I would open.
You could have a Matthew
Yeah.
McConaughey voiceover.
Because, my God, the things that are simile and going into the things that are and are changing him, and I think that's
It's
the
a great
story,
quote.
and it's a great quote, and it's a great book, and I strongly urge you to go and find this book.
And I love the way that he words it too, because it's like it's on the direction of going into cliche, but yet, I'm going this way instead. How would we rate it on a 0 to 5 scale with half stars permitted? Ari?
Well, for now, and I am going to reread it. For now, from what I remember, from what we discussed about, the things that kind of came back in my head, I'd give it a 4.5 out of 5. I don't think it's going to get much better than that. I don't usually give things perfect scores, so I think from what I remember and just knowing about Neil Gaiman and just that kind of general stuff, definitely going to reread it, and I'm going to give it 4.5 out of 5.
I'm going 4.5 as well. I really like Neil Gaiman. He's just, again, so fantastical. He's got all these little stamps that, you just know it's a Neil Gaiman book without even having to read the title or the name or the author or whatever.
Ooh, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. The word whimsical.
Yes.
That's the word I was thinking of.
That's, like, he's just, I don't know, I think he's a fantastic writer. He keeps things to the point, like we mentioned, he doesn't over-explain anything.
And when he
it's
does,
very
it's done
good.
on purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah, everything
so
is done with a purpose.
I like him a lot. He does a great job, so 4.5 for sure.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 5 because when reading it, I forgot whole sections of the book, so I remembered how the story start to finish went, but there were these little bits and pieces that surprised me along the way, and the fact that a book is able to surprise you in such a fantastic way, not just fantastical, but like in such a positive way and in a way that is exciting. It was like a new read all over again for me, so I'm definitely giving it a 5 because it is one of those repeat reads that makes it just as much fun. So it's kind of like a good day read. Bring it to the beach, bring it on a bus. It's not too in-depth. It's easy to follow, and it's, like we said, Richard Mayhew is just kind of the everyman character, so it's fun.
On the Maya Angelou principle, I'm going to give it a 4. Because I thought this is a book that I have continued to think about because of its message, and I think that Richard, using him as a character to represent us in the experience of what he's going through and what we should get out of his own experience, gives me that, I think it really has left me thinking beyond the text. With that being said, I feel that...
That's kind of what Tori mentioned earlier about stuff
I think
we
that
want to ask ourselves.
Richard was still, I don't think he was the most likable character.
I don't think he was supposed to be.
I don't think the characters, I don't think that the characters within the text were the most fleshed out. I think that some of them you could see as being mere plot devices. I would say in particular...
well-written plot devices, but I see where you're
the Marquis and Hunter, I think, were very much, especially the way that Hunter was portrayed was merely as a plot device for man.
Josh,
Yeah,
I
I
was
can
going to
see that.
say, and this applies to all different kinds of stories, When you have a story, as Tori was saying earlier, that it doesn't really explain a lot or doesn't need to explain a lot. And there's exposition, but not so much that it like that gives the reader more of the opportunity to make their own exposition rather than laying out exposition that you want the reader
Well,
to,
like I said,
to
it's
know
not
about.
just exposition; it's context clues.
Well, yeah,
given properly.
I
so
meant,
you
like,
can
in
pick
general.
up, you can critically read between the lines and done it. I see where you're coming from.
I've seen-
Right,
I mean-
and so the more that I think the more freedom the reader has to think about what might be going on behind the scenes, I think the better a book usually
Yeah,
is.
it serves.
I
them,
think
it's
that
not
there.
crammed
I
down
think
their
that there are books that have done it better though too, like
Yeah.
The Never-Ending Story. I think used a
That's
similar
Michael
end.
yeah.
I think that used. There were some. I mean, it wasn't. I did not see it as urban fantasy.
I
saw
thought Phantom Toll did it wonderfully.
But
That's another
yeah, I
book,
would say that it did. But otherwise, if you are interested in checking out Neil Gaiman and this book in particular, here is my copy.
This is my sister's copy because I always am stealing her books. She's got good taste in books.
And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now,
Keep reading.
Bye.
Hi there, this is Josh, and on the next episode of Literary Gladiators, Ari, Jesi, Tori, and I will be discussing Naked Truth and Resplendent Parable, featured in a collection of Yiddish folk tales. If you like what you see, be sure to support us on Patreon, for the money will allow us to create even more material for you guys. Thank you, and as always, I encourage you to keep reading.